Okay, we'll do it live. Welcome back to Chatooine, everybody. We have a big episode today because a lot happened in the most recent Ahsoka Tano series, Chapter 5. I think it's called Shadow Warrior, even though no one's going to remember the name. So let's get into the big discussion. So a lot to talk about, a lot to talk about, but I think the best way to start this is kind of how we did it after the last week's episode. Last week's was huge. Let's just do a kind of quick roundtable of your overall opinion, how you felt about it, and just a quick little, I thought it was good, I thought it was bad, and here's why. So let's start off with the great Darth Daddy Lunga. We'll go alphabetical order. I think you have a D. We're actually just going to go clockwise. I don't know say that.
The show since episode 1 and 2 premiere, the show has only gotten better and better with each preceding episode. This episode is great. I enjoyed it. Just like any episode, is there things in there that I can criticize? Sure, I'll find some things that they criticize it. However, none of them ruined my enjoyment of it, and none of them make it seem like I'm still not interested in this show, because I'm enjoying it better than Kenobi. The only thing I enjoyed better than this so far has been
the last
first two seasons of Mandalorian. Again, see this, and everyone watching, please, everyone watching, I'm gonna tell you this right now. Work with me on this, because I need to school a couple people here, because they seem to not understand the difference between a movie production and a serialized TV show. They are significantly different when it comes to production values. But when we're talking about it in the scope of a TV show, serialized program, it was great.
All right, I'll go next. I wasn't the biggest fan of this. I always feel like the contrarian on here at this point. I thought it was mid. I honestly thought like Lunga was saying, the show was getting better as it went on, and for me, a lot of it was hit or miss. I loved episode 4, and it's crazy to me how I feel like this was really detached from episode 4 of what I thought was great about that episode, and then what went into this episode. I watched this episode a second time, maybe an hour or two ago, and it's prettier than I remembered at first. There's a lot of things I don't like about it. Fundamentally, I think that's where my issue is with it, is it's like what happened with the world between worlds and Anakin and all that stuff. But the rest of the episode, I kind of enjoyed. I really liked kind of the last half of it. I honestly thought the world between worlds part was such a side tangent that the rest of the episode didn't really get the shine. And it kind of reminds me of last week's, where the ending of the episode 4, the last couple seconds, really took away the attention of the rest of the episode, which was so perfect. So, not my favorite episode. I thought last week's episode was a lot better, and I thought it was mid. I'm not the biggest fan.
Yeah, 9.5. It's a good start. All right, I'll go next. I was next in clockwise order. I really enjoyed this episode, but I think certain execution problems prevented it from reaching its true heights or reaching the levels of episode 4 quality. So I really enjoyed it, but I think there are things we'll discuss that I feel hindered it from reaching its fullest potential.
Yeah. I have a lot to say. I'm trying to figure out how to recap this in a nice compressed way. The episode, I say this as a Clone Wars, not even Clone Wars, but a prequel fanboy. Obviously, I enjoyed this. Funny enough, I really think the Clone Wars flashbacks, the flashbacks themselves in particular, were the weakest part of the episode. I don't think they were needed. I think there was a better way, and I will get to how I would have preferred it to go about. Had the production quality of the way it looked had been better.
Great production value of the actual prequels, it would have been great.
Attack of the Clones, that scene where the smoke comes into the clones at the end, and there's just this laser battle, looks 15 times better than the entire Clone Wars flashback. But beside the point, I think my favorite scene in this episode was actually the Purgle scene at the end. I thought that was beautiful. On paper, feel like I would have hated that if I read that that was going to happen, but the way it was executed was phenomenal. It looked great. The music, shout out to, is it Kenner music? Kiner, phenomenal job. I had chills the entire time. I loved the aspects with the New Republic. I loved Hera's rebelliousness in it. But I do think that the Clone Wars flashbacks were the weakest part. My second favorite was the World Between Worlds aspect within that actual realm itself with Anakin and Ahsoka. I thought that was phenomenal. And seeing Hayden Christensen with a red Graflex was awesome. That's my thought.
Oh, I'm sorry, I muted myself not to jump in and just interrupt Pal memes. But I mean, this episode, do you guys feel like this is going to be talked about for a long time? Because what I've noticed so far in the past 24 hours since it's come out, it's really been a big, moment for a lot of these diehard Star Wars fans saying, oh, this is peak Star Wars, peak Dave Filoni. This is some of the best Star Wars we've ever got. Do you guys feel that way about this episode? Or do you feel kind of like we did with the end of Mandalorian season 1, where everyone said that, but not a lot of people talk about that, like they talk about Mandalorian season 2 or even Andor, and people, the way they reminisce about how big of an arc that episode or that series had? How do you guys feel about this episode and how it's going to be remembered in the long haul in the Star Wars fandom?
I hate doing that in the middle of a series, because even though people like to dissect each individual episode, it still needs to play its part in the grand overall story being told. And an impact of an episode can change depending on how the series ends and what its impact is in the series overall. So it's hard to gauge that now for me until I see the whole series. So it's kind of weird for me to say that. I don't know how anyone else feels about that, but it's difficult for me to do that.
I agree, because I had a lot of certain thoughts from the beginning of the series, at least with the first half, that kind of make more sense now. And I think certain thoughts I have now could easily change come the end of the series.
My turn.
Oh, I'm sorry, Pal.
Yeah, speak.
I was messing with my audio and stuff a little bit. I got a little sidetracked.
Stop messing with your audio, dude. You sound fine.
Does it sound fine? Okay, fine.
Oh my God.
Stop being.
I'm done. I'm done. All right. I think that yes, this will be remembered for a long time. I don't think it's going to age as well as maybe this episode should age, which is the concept itself. It should be the greatest thing in Star Wars ever. But I don't know how. Why you look at me like that? The concept of Hayden Christensen.
Oh, when you ask me a question, now I got to answer it. I don't want to interrupt you, but you asked me a question.
Go.
This is the reason why I say you guys have a negative outlook on it. And when I say you guys, it's mostly you and Star Wars only. Right off the bat, if you are saying this episode, without knowing what was going to happen in it, without knowing what's going to happen in the rest of the series, should be the greatest thing that we've done. Right there, you're setting a bar that nothing on a TV show for Star Wars will ever hit. You set a bar to where you're going to be disappointed no matter what happens in it.
No, because my expectations, it didn't meet my expectations, but my expectations I don't think were super high. Now, they were hyping the shit out of this episode, so naturally we're going to get extremely hyped. The Mandalorian season 2 finale, right, in my opinion, for me, is easily one of the greatest Star Wars moments, and I think about that moment with Luke at the end and Grogu and everything all the time. I've rewatched that episode many, many times. Whereas this, I feel like for me personally, I should have had a bigger, okay, I need to rewatch this immediately reaction to it. Whereas at the end, I kind of just sat there. Granted, I watched it kind of late at night. I just kind of sat and I was like, this thing. I think The Mandalorian Chapter 16 is proof that you can make something that will be talked about for years on end. And I don't know if this episode will have reached that. I could be wrong, but I don't know.
Hold on. You made a false equivalency. I didn't say a TV show can't have an episode or series that's talked about. There's plenty that are talked about. The Sopranos, Breaking Bad. Of course. That's not what I said. I said you can't compare it to movies. And I think you guys are looking through a filter of George Lucas's movies or even Disney's movies, okay? Rather than looking at it that it's still you're going to get in movies. They're always going to be less.
Can I say something
with you? Andor.
Hey guys, something unrelated. Star Wars only. Are you streaming on your channel right now?
Yeah, I'm streaming on both of ours, or not.
I
Both
only
Chatooine
see
and
the
It's on.
stream
You
on
got
the
to
Chatooine
refresh it.
channel.
Yeah, it's on.
what?
It's on. I've been refreshing it.
Mhm. Go back. I think it.
Oh, you
Yeah,
have
it's
two
on.
streams, dude. Okay, never mind.
No, you're good. Okay,
All right.
so
Yeah.
that's why I compare it to The Mandalorian Chapter 16, but I think we can also compare it to Andor being another Star Wars show. I think Andor is proof that you can. Andor did use the volume, by the way, and I know
Barely.
Goldman doesn't really want to get into that, but I think it's important for this with kind of my issues with the show. Andor looks movie quality
Completely
throughout.
different.
Completely
different.
The only scenes
Completely
we're complaining
different.
about
Very
here,
grounded.
the only scenes we're
cities.
complaining about are the Clone Wars flashbacks. Do we all agree that everything else looked great?
Yes, the Purgle scene looked
Yeah,
beautiful.
for the
It
most
was
Like
part, yes,
I
absolutely.
don't see why. Sure, you can say the volume limited the potential of what we could have seen. But I don't see why we're arguing about this when the whole point of those two scenes, we didn't need to see a giant battle. The whole point of
Something-
we did not need to see a whole space battle. I feel like people will be complaining even more that this is member berries, that we got unnecessary Clone Wars action. It's focused on Ahsoka and Anakin. We didn't need more than what we got. Would have been nice, sure, but did we really need to see more there? No.
I want to. This is maybe it's the writer in me, but it's like I want to scream at people to understand what the symbolism is. She was in the world between worlds, okay? And if you notice, there was a lot of cloudiness, there was a lot of fogginess going around. The edges of things were clouded. It was like a fever dream, okay? It wasn't meant to be super crystal clear. It wasn't meant to be crisp. It wasn't meant to be like she was transported there. It was meant to be this ethereal kind of thing. That was the whole point of it. And you saw that perfect example when it, which was one of the greatest scenes in there, the flashing between Anakin and Vader coming through the fog. That's what they were going for. Now, it may not have worked for you, and I'm not going to argue if it didn't. But when you make it just sound like, oh, it just sucked, you're kind of discounting what they were going for. And I think that needs to be addressed.
Well, no, I'm very aware of that, and I agree with that idea is good. My problem is it seemed like they went 50-50 with the idea of it being sort of a dreamy sequence. In that case, we should have had lots of light leaks, more blur on things. Instead, it seems like a 50-50 ratio of them doing a dream sequence comparative to, hey, it's live action Clone Wars battle. And I think that's where, for me personally, it is subjective that it just didn't sit right with me because it looked very fan filmish. I know people don't like that term, but it genuinely did.
God, I am so done with hearing that. If you were going to compare this to fan films, no, you're both fucking nuts. Okay, because that is the hyperbole I'm talking about. Not liking it, fine. And I can't base your subjectivity. Okay, but when you compare it to a fan film, there is leaps and bound difference, guys.
I stand by that.
Is ridiculous.
I stand by that.
It can be a hyperbolic statement, but there's no way around saying this does not look cheap. Okay, you can see the armor shaking and it looks plastic on the clone troopers, but it does make me question the production value of some of these things to an extent because, Lunga, you're right. We can't set the standards to movie-like quality, but when I see Mandalorian, when I see Andor, and those are doing the same thing but better, that's where it kind of comes into question for me.
I got Kenobi PTSD.
We did not see a single big battle in Mandalorian or Kenobi, and this is what you guys wanted to see in this episode.
No, actually, I don't.
It was also a dream. It was also a dream sequence. It was a different.
I
kind
agree,
of thing.
but that's they
and it's weird when you say, "Oh, the armor looked plasticky and it was flopping around." When it was, I think it was pretty much. I believe they were CGI'd. I don't think those were practical armor.
I think the Mandalorians were CGI. Those look CGI. I think some of the clones were CG, but there was definitely practical costumes and stuff.
Yeah, but like example here, like when you say some of the stuff on Book of Boba Fett would look like fan film, I will agree with you 100% because that was horrible. Okay, the stuff on Book of Boba Fett was fucking horrible. So when I say that, that's what I think of. And to me, to say that what we saw here is on the same level as Book of Boba Fett CGI wise, it doesn't gel. It doesn't jive with me.
Okay,
well,
we're definitely not going to get anywhere with this one because me and Palpatines clearly think that this looks cheap and just not that great, and you guys are fine with it or think it looks good. Either way, that's fine because it doesn't. We have to get into like the merit of the story and what was happening here. Last week, we all had a lot of predictions of why Anakin was here. Do you feel satisfied with the answer or lack thereof that we got in this episode with Anakin being in a world between worlds?
I am very satisfied because it's also.
Are we still going clockwise or no? Okay.
No, we're not. you don't always get to go first. You don't always get to go first.
To the punch, bitch.
Yes, I was really happy with it. Now you fucking ruined my train of thought. What was I gonna say, motherfucker?
I'm next, I guess. Sorry, Lunga.
I was happy that it was somewhat left to your interpretation as to if Anakin was really there. Was that really him? It wasn't him transporting through time. Like, it was Revenge of the Sith Anakin who happened to enter the world between worlds. This wasn't even really the world between worlds. It was more so just a dream sequence. It wasn't something you could just enter and exit. Like, she kind of just passed out and was there. So is it really the world between worlds? Not really. Is that what you said, Lunga? I don't remember what you said last week.
Comment I put on the screen.
That's
why I was staying muted. I wasn't trying to interrupt your train of thought.
Nice.
That was funny.
Yeah. And I'm always skeptical about Force Ghosts. Anakin here was essentially a Force Ghost. They should always be there to only serve aiding the character in a time of need. And that's what Anakin did here. There was none of the other shit where he's trying to reach through time or whatever. He was there to aid Ahsoka. So I was very happy how they used Anakin.
I will go. Sorry, I beat you, Palpamines.
Go ahead.
I don't believe that. Now, to answer Star Wars only question, are you satisfied? The answer is double. I would say no, but I can't say that yet because I think we're going to find out later. So it's an open question. I think it's going to be revealed later because what I saw, the way I interpreted this, is it wasn't Anakin.
Mm-hmm.
Someone brought her into the world between worlds. Okay. And I don't believe it was Anakin. And if you looked, it was someone trying to teach her a lesson. And I don't think Anakin was the one because it kept flip-flopping between different things. And this was something I'll go into deeper when we talk about it, when it talks about the whole thing about living, fight. If you don't fight, you die, which I think is a very important line in this whole thing to what her life has been. So I don't think it was Anakin. I think it was someone else. It'd be really cool if it was a Bendu, but that's not going to happen. But I think it's someone else. It could be just the Force itself, even. It may not even be anyone in particular. But I don't believe it was Anakin that brought her in there. And so just when you just look at the dialogue and the way it would shift, and it was all about teaching her a certain lesson. And the lesson was there, which I know that's a big topic too. So I'll expand on that more when we get into that part there. I don't think it was super clear, and I can understand people's frustrations on saying what lesson. I didn't get it.
Yeah.
So I will say, I will give the criticism that they weren't as clear with it. I caught it, but it wasn't because it was super clear. It's because I just went extra brain power to try to figure it out. But it wasn't super clear. So that's on them that they didn't make it clear enough. Now, again, that could change as we get to the further episodes. Perhaps there'll be more of this threads along the way, which explain it. This just could be just the first thread being pulled of what we see going on later. And that won't be expressed as an info dump. It'll be as part of a dialogue with Sabine. It'll be part of a dialogue with other people as far as what's going on. So it'll be interspersed throughout as part of dialogue, not necessarily info dumps. I think people are too relying on info dumps to explain everything, which info dumps are really bad storytelling if you do that. So you got to really pay attention to it. And this is, again, not insulting anyone's intelligence, saying, oh, you're just not smart enough to get it. No, it's not that. It's just they're not doing a good enough job to make it clear enough, so you actually have to pay attention extra to figure it out.
Yeah, I agree that the development, the sort of character arc she went through wasn't very, very clear. You know, now she comes out, she's kind of this Ahsoka the White, if I've seen people call her that. She's got more emotion to her, more charisma and stuff. And I said, I don't know if it was in a video I made or in one of our streams here, that I do think they purposefully have written her to be very stern and flat, which was a big criticism of Ahsoka. I had a feeling that this is kind of where her character would go, and it seems like that is the case. So I'm happy for that. As for Anakin Skywalker, and being satisfied with that, I thought it was great. I mean, last week you guys kind of had me worried because we were talking about it being freaking Palpatine. And so I kind of got in my own head. I'm like, oh crap, this might be a bold Dave Filoni moment. I don't agree personally that may not have been Anakin himself. I think 100% that was Anakin Skywalker, Siege of Mandalore, you know, where Anakin asks Ahsoka, well, what battle is this and stuff, you know, that had to have actually been Anakin. Shout out to, who's that young actress that played Ahsoka? I forget her name. Talking positive things.
Ariana Grande.
She was young Gamora. She was
in Barbie, and then you know, talking positively about those flashbacks, she did a phenomenal job, and so good for her. But Anakin Skywalker, man, I mean, he's one of my favorite characters, if not my favorite character in Star Wars. And I've always been a huge defender of Hayden Christensen as an actor for the character of Anakin. I don't go the levels of the whole I don't like sand line is good, but I will say I do think Anakin or Hayden Christensen's perfect for the role. And I think looking at the way he's being directed in this episode shows that he is a pretty good actor. I think he did a phenomenal job of going back to that Clone Wars flashback and having that kind of charisma he's got compared to where he is in present time with Ahsoka trying to train her, going again to another version of his character, which is Darkside Anakin holding a red Graflex saber.
Why do you keep saying that? Like, what does that even mean?
Yeah.
Graflex?
Yeah.
That's the lightsaber he has.
Well, why can't you just say lightsaber? Like
I'm a lightsaber nerd.
Is Graflex a in-universe term or is it a
it's a
company term that makes the lightsabers?
Okay, I'll start calling it.
So it's not an in-universe term. All right.
Using fan props in this.
I'm super into lightsabers.
Well,
I
rather would have seen him use a saber force saber because that one makes more sense.
Shut up. Okay, never mind. His red Skywalker saber. There, are you guys happy?
Oh, and I would like to publicly apologize to Palpamemes.
You mean his Darth Vader saber?
Last week, no, Palpamemes was right. Last week, it was the Skywalker saber, and I disagreed. So I am here to publicly say you were right.
Respect.
I thought that argument was ridiculous because it's like, what other saber would be holding?
Palpatine, guys.
Oh, yeah.
Come on. That's the ridiculous argument.
That was partly in jest because I know how stupid Lucasfilm could be. I'm like, are they really going here with Palpatine?
Fair.
Right. But I do want to push back on the one thing you said. You're like, well, obviously, he was confused, so it had to be Anakin.
No.
If whatever entity was trying to convince Ahsoka that this is Anakin, because that's what Ahsoka needed was to talk to Anakin. Of course, it's going to act like Anakin. That's not a stretch.
So you're saying it was sort of a vision based on what would actually happen. Is that kind of?
And also, the reason why I don't believe it's Anakin is how is Anakin going to just be in this world between worlds and also be Anakin and Darth Vader and just flip flopping back and forth like he's got fucking split personality disorder. He's got dissociative personality disorder and can't make up who he is.
No, in Palpameme's defense, I'm not decided. I think it could go either way. But if it was really Anakin, he could easily, I don't want to say easy, like I know what the hell is going on with the Force to teach Ahsoka the lesson. So if he wanted to show Ahsoka, by helping teach a lesson, if he wanted to portray himself on the dark side, he would do that.
Yeah, that's kind of how I took it.
In literary and movie stuff, anytime there's someone that comes back in some kind of vision to teach them a lesson, sometimes if it's a different entity, they always come back in someone that's familiar to them, to someone who teaches Ahsoka lessons. It's always her master. That's who teaches her lessons.
And he did say that, this was her choice to live or die. And I feel like, I'm going to be honest, I wasn't overly satisfied with Anakin's, at least the answers we were looking for, because I feel like this tried its best to not answer it intentionally so we could use our imagination, or like Lunga was saying, maybe explain it later on. I don't think they're going to explain it later on. And the way I took his appearance was, this is going to be like when they say in the Expanded Universe books, when Darth Vader dies, Obi-Wan shows up and is like, hey, before you pass, here's how you become a Force Ghost. Here's how you become one with the Force. I thought we were going down a similar route here because Qui-Gon goes to Yoda to say, I have to teach you and finish your training to become a Force Ghost, to become one with the Force. And then we do the same thing.
Yeah, but Force Ghost Anakin is not going to turn into Darth Vader in the middle of this.
Okay, but that's the thing. But that's what I'm saying is like, so it's clearly not that. And it can't, it's one of those things where when you're on the verge of death and you have someone come to you to help you and all that stuff, I took that as, all right, we're training to become one with the Force and the Force Ghost. This was not that. And I am a little unsatisfied because it's like, first of all, I wasn't a big fan of the whole lesson thing that she learned. And I wasn't a big fan of how we explained of Anakin being here because it wasn't explained. It's fine if it's open to debate and each fan's interpretation. I get that. But there does come a point where it's like, okay, well, how come Ahsoka gets to choose to live or die, kind of like Harry Potter did? But did this happen for Qui-Gon? This happened for Mace Windu? This happened for other people?
Well, that's not the same thing here. It's like Ahsoka wasn't actually dead. Like, it's not like if someone got their head chopped off, then they could go to the world between worlds and decide if they want to live.
He already hinted what he did. Whatever it was saved her from dying, just like she saved.
Like she could have died, but she was in like purgatory. We don't know, and It's like Qui-Gon got stabbed through the chest. Now I know that doesn't mean much
I
these
was
days.
about to
Back
say,
then
yeah,
it meant a lot. So yeah, it's not
back in
like
'99. Back in the day, you could get stabbed in the chest and actually die. 2023, that's not a thing anymore.
No, I mean, I agree.
Sabine was stabbed in the freaking liver. Let's
we
slow
don't
down.
need
It
to
wasn't
have
the
this
chest.
debate again. We do not need to have this debate again.
I'm done with
What
that.
were we going to say, Pal Memes?
Yeah.
I was gonna say I agree with Goldman. Now I lost my train of thought. Thank you, Lunga. Very cool.
I'm sorry, liver derails you.
No, I know. Okay, so yeah, she didn't
derail
die.
Sabine.
She didn't die. Now the question is, did like time for her body freeze during this entire thing happen? Because there's no way she's underwater for that long, unless there's something about her race or species that we don't know about where they can survive underwater for a long period of time.
Saved her from
This
drowning.
is like Star Wars science. Like she was in the
I know. I can't ask it, but Lunga, I want to get to a point you made about like you asked kind of how did Anakin get here or whatever. We don't know a whole lot about the world between worlds, and there's a lot of questions open, and honestly more questions even open because of this episode. And it seems like Dave Filoni does that a lot. He'll open up questions and never answer them. So I agree with Only that we're not going to get these answers. I don't think this is the last we're going to see Anakin in this show. I think we're going to see him at least once more. It might be a Qui-Gon situation at the end with like the end of Kenobi where he just says, I've been trying to reach you or whatever he said. But I don't know. I think we're going to get more with Anakin. Maybe just possibly we will get some more explanation, but
I'm glad that it was left open-ended, because I really don't like when people try to explain the Force too much. Like, how is Anakin there? That's the midichlorian type shit I hate. And the way I interpreted this was similar to those Yoda episodes in the Clone Wars, where he has those flashbacks and he sees like Count Dooku as a Jedi and Qui-Gon's still there. Like, that wasn't actually them, but it was still a vision and they were acting like those characters. Or like when Kanan was talking to the Grand Inquisitor as a Jedi Temple Guard, or when Ezra was talking to the Grand Inquisitor in the temple. Like, it wasn't actually them. So I tend to lean towards it actually not being Anakin, but maybe it's like Anakin using the Force to portray himself. Again, I'm not trying to think too much about that, because what's more important here is the lesson as opposed to if that's actually him. So that's my take.
My thing about why is Anakin there isn't how is he in the world between worlds. It's not a metaphysical specific question. How is he there? It's more along the lines of, because it doesn't make sense. He wouldn't be swooping to Darth Vader as a Force ghost, because that just doesn't jive with everything we know about Force ghosts. So he had to make a conscious choice to do this. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. That's why I feel it's just a manifestation of the Force using something.
I would tend to agree. But I'm not 100%
familiar with.
I would lean towards it's not Anakin himself, and the idea that Anakin could even go to the world between worlds after everything we know about his life as Anakin and Vader, it would really take me out of it a lot, where like, this is ridiculous. But the idea that it's maybe just Ahsoka manifesting it in her own mind, kind of like when Luke goes to the cave on Dagobah and he fights Vader, like Goldman saying, it's clearly not Vader, but that is the dark side, and that is his visions testing him, and the Force basically bringing that out. If that's what this is, fine. I like that, and I get that. But the uncertainty behind it, where it's not as clear, because what Goldman was referring to with Palpatine and Count Dooku kind of like tricking him with the Sith magic and alchemy they were doing. It was either them or it was the dark side. Sometimes it feels like when you have these visions of other people who aren't really there in the Force, normally, at least from what I recall, it's someone else pulling the strings to do that against you. That's where this is confusing to me. Is this the Force acting on its own behalf to give Ahsoka a lesson? Is this
the living Force, which Anakin would be a part of?
Yes. Yeah.
But I don't think it's because Anakin's a part of the living Force that he's there. I think it's because of her connection to Anakin is why he is there. I would not like it to be this whole, what people are saying, oh, Anakin is finally a Mortis god and everything. That's beyond cringe and stupid.
Well, no, yeah, but I've seen people say things like, oh, if it's not Anakin, then it's stupid. To me, that bothers me for one reason. That is pure prequel fanboy at that point. You just want Anakin. That's it. Yes. It doesn't care. It's cool because Anakin was there. This is where the member berries do come in. Star Wars only. It's like, oh, yeah, Anakin was there. Yes! And that's it. That's it. Just if Anakin's there, I'm happy. And if you're telling me it's not Anakin, that ruins it. It spoils it. It sucks. It's horrible. It has to be Anakin. No, that's not storytelling. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, do I really want it to be Anakin? Yes, but would I be okay if it was just the Force in this presence? Just, again, Anakin is a part of the Force. We know that. So I'd be okay with that, too.
Do you guys want to discuss Ahsoka's arc? Because as Lunga teased, it was left. A lot of people were confused. I had people that were both hardcore Star Wars fans and non-Star Wars fans, and myself that were a little confused at first. And I think a lot of the live or die decision is what confused a lot of people. So let's get into that.
Yeah, I would like to compartmentalize her arc in that lesson.
Mm-hmm.
That just that lesson rather than her entire arc with everything going on, but just that lesson that she learned in this episode. Mm-hmm. Because the live or die thing is not really the lesson.
Great.
The lesson is either you fight or you die. So that's the lesson, and I think that's what people missed. Mm-hmm. And so to her, living is constantly fighting. Okay, and that's all she's been doing. Even when she left the Jedi Order, that's all she's been doing is fighting. Like everything is a life or death battle, and it's always about fighting. And this is when we get back to the core, because I know people hate to hear this, but Filoni is a Lucas acolyte. Even if they don't like what he's done with what Lucas has taught him, he's a Lucas acolyte. Okay, and the Jedi historically are peacekeepers. The Jedi historically are diplomats. The Jedi historically try to find non-violent solutions to things, which is why Balin was so upset with her, because he seems to be a Jedi purist. He likes to seem to believe what the Jedi used to be, and he's disappointed that it fell because of Anakin and the other dogma that happened. It fell apart, and that's why he was so disappointed in her when she went immediately. Think about the symbolism. She went immediately to pull her lightsaber to fight, and he's like, "Of course, that's what you went with, because that's what happened to the Jedi, and that's what she's lived by, and that's what Anakin taught her," which is why he kept repeating it, because all she learned from him, for the most part, was to fight. She didn't learn the shit that Qui-Gon was trying to teach him before he got stabbed through the chest, not the liver. He learned from Obi-Wan, who tried to teach that, but then was drawn into this conflict, and Obi-Wan was constantly pulled from both sides between diplomat and fighting, and he always had to err towards fighting. So he raised this Padawan that just learned how to fight, and Anakin believed that is the only way to win, and that's what he taught her, and that's all she knows. And I think she's realizing, and this is why I think it's gonna be really interesting when we get to Thrawn, because Thrawn, if they do him right, likes to find non-violent means to solutions to things. So she learning this and perhaps realizing maybe there's ways to discuss things rather than going right to fighting and everything has to be a battle, can play into this as well. And that's the lesson I think that was learned. Rather, the live or die, it sounds dumb when you hear it. Oh, the lesson was live or die.
Well, duh.
Okay, but did you hear anything I said? Did you just ignore everything I said?
No, I'm agreeing.
The lesson wasn't live or die. The lesson was fight or die. That there's that living doesn't mean you just have to fight. It's not a binary. It's not either you fight or you die. You can live without having to fight. That's the lesson. That there's other ways to live that don't require constant battle. That's the lesson, not live or die.
Okay, well, Goldman, since you're someone who also enjoys whatever the fuck this lesson was, please tell me in Pop Memes why you liked it, so that me and him can say possibly why we didn't like it or what we took from this quotation marks lesson.
First, I'll say I do not agree with Lunga. I do not think that was the lesson of this episode. I think fighting was maybe part of it, but that was not my big interpretation. So before we talk about this, we have to analyze where is Ahsoka like right now when the episode began. She was talking to Balin before, and he kept on saying things. She
was in
like,
the water.
Mentally, where is she? Not physically, Lunga. Damn it.
Oh, by the way, I don't know if you saw the part with her in the water, but I wrote that in my script.
Shut up.
Anyway.
Oh my gosh.
So all series, what are the big criticisms that we've had about Ahsoka? Or what are her flaws, if you will? That she was kind of emotionally distant. She wasn't really a good friend to Sabine. A bunch of that type of shit. And when Balin was talking to her, he kept on saying things like your legacy, like your masters, is of death and destruction. And I think that was the main lesson, was that what do you mean, Lunga? Wait, let me finish. That her legacy is not that of her masters. That she's not defined by what Anakin did. and that Anakin's fall to the dark side is not what she's going to become. That she is going down her own path, and that she doesn't need to live in fear of ending up like how Anakin ended up. And we can go into the specifics of why I think that is.
Okay,
Which is
you have
what?
two different takes.
All he did was say to fight. Everything you just said danced around so she doesn't end up like Anakin. That's the destruction. Yes, fighting.
Okay,
That's what it is.
Fighting. It's not that the whole point, the whole reason why she hasn't been training Sabine and why she was probably hesitant to train Grogu in the first place is because Anakin traumatized her. She feared that she would end up like him. It's not
and
just
what is she taught Sabine? We've got the hints of it. What is she taught Sabine? The same thing.
Very little.
All she taught Sabine is to fight. That's all she's taught her. You have to fight. You have to fight. So she's going down the same path that Anakin did. That's what Anakin taught her.
It's the fear of attachment. That's why she didn't want to train Grogu, because she saw what those types of feelings would do to someone. So
That's another thing. That's a Jedi thing. That's not an Ahsoka thing.
She's that Jedi.
But then it's like, if that's why would she be so reborn about learning? Oh, there's other ways to fight. I don't feel like that's such a big boulder lifted off of her shoulders. Like, oh, she now
the entire prequel story was about how the Jedi went right to fighting. That they were duped into this war. That's literally the entire thing. And Qui-Gon was trying to warn against it. And if Qui-Gon didn't die, like that's not thing.
This is Ahsoka's story. It's not the story of the prequels.
Ahsoka clearly stopped fighting.
She was in the Clone Wars. Oh my God. I'm not even going to get.
That's part of it, but that's not what the story is here. It's more than just fighting.
Me and you.
The story here is about what Anakin taught her during the prequels.
No, I think it's more than that. Way more
you didn't like this lesson, I presume. Did you like the lesson or not? Yes or no?
I just don't understand why they had to go through all this, and instead they could have just had Rose Tico show up and say, "That's how we're going to win, not fighting what we hate, but saving what we love." I mean, is that not the lesson?
It's the same lesson from the last Jedi.
I thought you loved that. I thought you loved that line. I thought you loved that.
Great line used in a terrible.
Oh, context. I'm sorry, you didn't. You like the Kylo shrug. That's what you loved.
Yeah. He was Ben Solo at that point.
How could you not? My thoughts on the lesson. I don't have a whole lot. You guys did a good job of recapping everything. I think they didn't execute it as well as it should have been. Like, I think we can all agree on that. It felt very abrupt. You know, it felt like they were kind of like, okay, we're making the Ahsoka show, but really we're making the Rebels season 5. Oh crap, this is called Ahsoka. We need to give her an arc, and it felt a little bit too abrupt. I think it could have been worked out a little bit longer throughout the series as a whole. I do like now that she, at least as of the end of the episode, she's more spiritually uplifted and not so dry. And I think that's going to go a long way for the rest of the series.
I don't believe that, because I think Dave Filoni originally had her as part of the Rebels story. She was interspersed. This is Rebels season 5, but then they're like, oh, we're gonna make an Ahsoka show, you know. Yeah, but Ahsoka is part of the Rebels story. So
I'm not saying she's not. I'm saying, why not just call this Rebels season 5 or Rebels live action? I mean, obviously
because the name Ahsoka is much more marketable than Rebels. Sorry,
absolutely.
I'm sorry for Rebels fan. Sorry, Goldman, but
absolutely
it's much more marketable than Rebels is.
More than that.
This episode specifically was the most about Ahsoka, was it not? I mean, the rest of the series has really been about Sabine, Baylan, Shin, Morgan Elsbeth, but then the plot to find Ezra and Thrawn while being titled Ahsoka. This episode really took a kind of side step to focus on her and her character arc and all that stuff. I was not a fan of the lesson. I really like hearing how Lunga and Goldman interpret it, because you guys like it and you guys have two different views on it. Whereas me, I didn't like the lesson because I kind of am leaning towards how Goldman interprets her lesson. But even still, I wasn't a big fan of it, because when I look at Ahsoka and her trauma and her past and all that stuff, it mostly was about her abandoning Anakin and feeling guilt about what he became as Darth Vader. And they really didn't cover that at all with these conversations and these dialogues. It was really cool to see them fight. And, I thought
there was no
guilt.
There
I think
No, it wasn't.
Rebels-
No, I think you're adding shit that didn't exist. There was no guilt there.
Okay,
She was angry.
I know.
There was no guilt.
Dude, if you watch
I'm with
the
Ron on
scene where when Anakin comes back as like a little Force ghost in Rebels, he literally says to Ahsoka, "Why did you abandon me?"
I think she had guilt back
that doesn't
then,
mean
but
she
not
feels
now.
guilty just because he said that.
When I'm more with Lunga that she was angry at him, and she was angry at him for what he became, and that's why I think the episode's more about than just fighting, and it's about her relationship with Anakin. I think the biggest takeaway was from the second flashback or whatever when they were at the Siege of Mandalore, and he's like, you've become an excellent warrior, and she's like, is that all I am? And he's like, everything that I am is in you now, and she's like, it's not just about fighting, Lunga. It's like everything
but every
that I am
example
is in
you give is about that.
Let me finish. Fighting is just part of it, Lunga. So he says everything that I represent is in you now, and she's like, yeah, and you became very dangerous. Look at what happened. And he's like, that's not the lesson. Let's go back to square one and start talking about it. Because what he was trying to tell her is that she's more than just what he was. Just because he became bad, that doesn't mean she's going to become bad too. And just because Anakin gave into his attachments and turned to the dark side that way, that doesn't mean that if she lived and she didn't kill Anakin, like in that moment with the dark side eyes, if she chose not to kill Anakin, whether that's really Anakin or not, whatever, she chose not to make the act of killing. That's not something Anakin could have done. Ahsoka resisted the dark side. That's something that Anakin couldn't do, and that's where the arc is kind of complete for now, at least. She's not her master. She's more than that. And there are good parts about Anakin that reside in her now. And she's going to go forward without that burden that she's part of this traumatic legacy. And that was a key part of it, the term legacy. That's something Baylan referenced, and it's something that Anakin referenced here too. She was traumatized by that legacy.
That's only been brought up in the past, series pretty much, though. I feel like throughout the entire story of Ahsoka, this was not like a key point of her character. Like when I see people say like they feel like they didn't get a lesson from this, it truly does feel like if we had just cut the episode when she gets chopped down by Baylan and then open up when she just opens her eyes and is being rescued by Hera, not much changes.
Oh my god!
Honestly,
what?
Not at all.
A completely different person.
Yeah, she evolved. I mean, we can call it abrupt, but she did change.
Why? Because she can accept her past.
Yes,
accept Anakin.
That's a big part. She idolized Anakin, and remember, up until Rebels, she thought Anakin was dead, died a hero, right? So much of what he represented was so important to her. So when she found out he turned to the dark side, that is world-shattering. It's like, imagine, I can't think of a real-life analogy because there's nothing like it. But just like everything you believed in, if you believed in something and then you just found out it was a complete lie. It's like, that's world-shattering. And that's why she's
Can we
so
get to the reality here, Goldman?
No, we can't. That's why she is so different here.
You know the reality here, right?
It's more.
You know the reality of what's going on here, right?
Oh, with Star Wars only, yeah. Oh yeah.
He hates Ahsoka. Okay, he thinks she's dumb. Period.
No,
so he doesn't even care about her.
That's not the case. I would not have watched all of Clone Wars throughout my childhood if I did not like Ahsoka. I don't like how she's in every fucking thing ever at this point and becomes such an integral character.
We've already been through this.
Yeah. I mean,
we even made a short about it.
Yeah,
pretty well, actually.
Because I'm right. She's in everything now. But I something she needed to learn of, you got to be at peace with your past. That's a lesson throughout all of the Jedi. That's one of the big things they always teach is just accept. And she has to really, literally go through things we've already done before to do it again. I heard that one. I don't know who the fuck that was, but I know that was Longo. He's talking. We're not hearing.
Can I also?
There's a little react button at the bottom of the screen. I didn't know what it did, but it apparently does.
I've got something for you, only. Hang on.
Oh snap! Oh, that's cool! Oh my god!
Star Wars meltdown.
That was good.
Certified Star Wars meltdown by Star Wars only.
Yep.
#FakeFan. Can I just say that I also think part of the lesson, it wasn't too clear, but something that I personally got from it was also, it was very quippy, but Anakin was like, oh, that's what you're still on about? And basically, to me, I kind of interpreted that as him trying to show her that him being Darth Vader was all part of his path, and he couldn't change that. It was inevitable. Now, whether we agree with that idea or not, I do think that's something that he may have been trying to show her is this is part of the journey. This path for you is inevitable, just as it was for me. In the end, I still brought balance. Now, again,
I disagree.
Again, we can say that Anakin's not right about that, but I do think he was kind of trying to show her that because she literally asks him, about everything, and he goes, "Oh, are you still on about that, or is this what this is about?"
If you want me to get really existential about it, again, you're all gonna think I'm crazy, but here's the thing: the way I saw that is until she found out, she had nothing to do with him being Darth Vader, and she was already gone. So him turning to Darth Vader really had no effect on her path because she already left. Like if she was with him and she was there and she saw him turn to Darth Vader, that'd be one thing. She didn't have that trauma. She found out after the fact, way after the fact.
Yeah.
Okay, 20 years after the fact. She lived her whole life pretty much up until that point without knowing that fact. So him turning to Darth Vader didn't have any effect on the course of her life. It may have had effect in these preceding years after that, but she was already an adult. She was already grown, and she already had,
for Anakin's story, that was inevitable for his path, just as the path that Ahsoka is currently on. That path,
I think he said that because he's like, this isn't about me. This is about you. That's what I saw.
Yeah, but I think he's just showing her, hey, this path is inevitable, right? You must take this pathway. Just as I made my mistakes and fell down this path, but in the end, balance was brought. But again, that's just an interpretation based on loose dialogue. So,
that's why I said existential. This is all interpretation.
I want to share a thought because I think the certain things open to interpretation I think are good, but character arcs not so much. And I think the fault lies here in that we saw her flaws throughout the first 4 episodes, but it wasn't exactly clear as to why she was acting this way. Throughout the past few episodes, we were speculating why she was like this. And a lot of the discourse was, oh, she's been through some shit. Like, that's why she's more hardened than she was before. But in this episode, we kind of learned that it was because of her fear of this legacy that she's carrying from Anakin. So I think if that was established a little bit earlier on, instead of maybe the 4th episode when Balin brings it up, I think people would be more receptive to the arc. If it was introduced maybe in the first 2 episodes in like a brief line where she's not talking to Sabine, but the reason why things went south is because of Ahsoka's own fears rather than her just not being patient with Sabine. Because that's kind of how it seemed at first. But now it seems it's more so due to her fears. I think if we knew why she had those flaws in the beginning, more people would understand that this is her arc and this is how she ended up being Ahsoka the White by the end of the episode.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Ahsoka the White at the end of Rebels, though?
It's kind of a retcon, so yeah.
Well,
it's his own show. It's his own show.
Dave Filoni retcons everyone else's work. Is this the first that he retconned his own work?
But it's like, yes. I mean, pretty much. Yeah, he retconned.
But I don't even think she realizes she's carrying a legacy. I think she realizes she's been taught this by him, and that's all she knows, and that's how she lives. That's her life. That's how I see it, and I think she's starting to realize that she
didn't do that.
I think that's part. I think that's a big part of why.
Are we going to pretend that the fact that she was with him as a child and everything she learned about being a Force wielder came from him?
Oh,
that's
yeah, no,
that is important. That is true. But she, even as a kid, she decided, look, I'm not doing this Jedi stuff anymore. She didn't stand for the code. She walked away.
Sure.
And for seemingly the rest of her life, maybe when she dies, she'll become a Jedi again so she can be saved by the Lord and Savior Yoda and become a Force ghost afterwards. Because I think that's a prerequisite to become a Force ghost.
But why are we pretending that human beings, just in the regular world, these are parallels, that when you like stuff you learn in your early years are things that stick with you and they mold you to who you are. So independent or not, independent means she makes her own choices, but it doesn't mean that while making those choices, she still carries the same baggage that she learned as a young person. That's human. That's not even Star Wars, dude. That's human nature.
Wonderfully
said. Absolutely, but she doesn't. It's not like she always results to simple action, or she's someone who is like Anakin and just always goes on the offense. Even in Tales of the Jedi, the Inquisitor that shows up to burn the village down and whatever, she's on the defense. She's there to help them. Ahsoka, when she left the Jedi Order, it seemed like that was a big part of her arc in terms of, reminiscing on her past as a Jedi, but also not always fighting and not always jumping into action. In this series, she goes after Balin and everything like that, and it's predictable to him. That shows something different. But even in Rebels, she seems someone who was there to defeat like the dark side, but for the good of the people.
What's the big difference? She found out that her master became Darth Vader. That's a huge thing for her.
So after she finds out, that's when she like becomes very aggressive.
Yes.
And like I have not seen that.
That's what she's been in the first 4 episodes.
You're going to say I have not seen that, but you say she's in everything, which, by the way, I saw the comment that had to be you. You say she's in everything. And here's the thing.
It wasn't me.
But he leaves out the fact that she's in Rebels. Oh, like what? 5 episodes? Out of 5 seasons?
Not many. Not many episodes.
She was in 2 episodes of Mandalorian. I mean, I'm sorry. Ooh. It's like, come on.
Yeah,
they were the biggest and most memorable episodes in the entire series. You gotta bring back.
Maybe because people like Ahsoka. I know that's hard to grasp, but maybe they were that memorable because people.
I don't know why you think I don't like. I just don't like her in every single.
Because there was a stream we did before Chatooine started, where it was you and me on your channel or mine, and you're like, I fucking hate Ahsoka. You said that so many times. Okay?
Yeah.
You said that. This is before the Disney Plus shows. This is before Disney Plus was a thing. And you were like, I fucking hate Ahsoka. So now that you see more, what do you think I'm going to hear every time you say something?
I forgot how many years we've known each other. I think my biggest point was I'm just tired of her. And also, I'm just tired of turning on Star Wars and then seeing this chick
once every 2 years, maybe.
No, every fucking over half the shows have her in it at this point, which is
so tired of seeing this girl, this woman. Women. I don't want women in my Star Wars.
It's even worse when she's a child.
I mean, he doesn't like Ahsoka. He doesn't like Rey. He doesn't like Rose. It's just a pattern. There's a pattern. Star Wars only.
I noticed how you missed good old Carrie Fisher as Leia in that one.
Oh well, that one's a given because but she's the token. She's the one that everybody loves, so that's okay.
The damsel in distress that turns the tables.
I do want to touch on one thing that Lunga briefly mentioned, and this is why all these comments and people that they say shit on Twitter. Again, I fucking hate Twitter. Were like, oh, this was all fan service and shit, just so Dave Filoni wanted to turn the Clone Wars into live action. It was essential that we see how young Ahsoka was during the Clone Wars. I think people don't realize it when they watch the animated shows, but here, I mean, what was her name? Ariana Greenblatt or whatever. I mean,
and it was a master stroke. It was great. It was beautiful. I love seeing that.
The actress, I believe, is 16. Like, she's in Ahsoka's 14 and 17 and in the 2 flashbacks respectively. But she was a kid when all this happened, and she's seeing these soldiers die. Like, that's traumatizing. And as Lunga wonderfully said, that shit sticks with you when you're a child. Look what happened with Anakin, like the whole slave part and the fear of losing someone. That was a big reason. That was a big part of his childhood, and that stuck with him when he became Darth Vader. So I think showing Ahsoka as a child in the middle of war and the fighting aspect that Lunga brought up, that's why this is so important to her, because all this happened to her when she was a kid. So that's why when she found out Anakin was Darth Vader and that he turned to the dark side, that's why it impacted her so much, because her whole time with Anakin was when she was a child. So that leaves a huge impact on you.
And what if I don't want to fight? Then you die. That was the pinnacle of everything that was being taught. That line told to her as a 14-year-old girl on a battlefield. That stuck with her, man. And you see, and again, the parallel is the fight with Balin and what Balin said to her. That is the parallel between those two scenes, and that's what ties it all together. Yes, could there be more nuance, all this stuff? And honestly, I don't. You and me aren't really that far apart, Goldman.
We're not.
It's the same thing. I'm just zeroing in on a specific part of it, and you're like, you don't think it's just that. Well, of course, there's going to be more added to it. There's more than just one thing, solitary thing. But I think that's the core of it.
Yeah, that's where we disagree. But again, kind of we share the same perspective.
Well, we can't deny that this episode was just member berries at the wazoo. Is that what you're hinting at, Goldman?
No.
Is that what you're
the only member berry
Here we go.
was really like them zooming in on Captain Rex. And they're like, guys, here's Rex for you. That was I didn't mind it.
They didn't even zoom in. He was in the
second
background.
No, in Siege of
No, I got a
Mandalore, they
close
zoomed
guy.
right in on him.
You got Rex, you got Ryloth, you got Mandalore.
Okay, it's like,
you
so
got
what,
the
Ryloth? Oh,
Spin.
you saw some Twi'leks in the background that you could barely recognize. And then I did like seeing the
I wonder if that's because of the
Mandalorians.
bad
Name
production.
any random episode of Clone Wars, you'll see all that.
Yeah,
What
so
are you
that
talking
wasn't
about?
member berries to me. That's why I disagree with the notion that this was member berries. You know what would have been member berries if they recreated entire battle scenes and they had this wonderful battle going on and reenacted the Siege of Mandalore perfectly. But we had a little focused scene that didn't have many member berries. That's why it looked so good.
Oh, he said many though.
Star Wars only.
There were them.
Just a little bit.
Despite your hatred of this wonderful character, you tell me, what period of her life do you think is the most impactful period of her life?
Yes, clearly the Clone Wars.
The Clone Wars. Thank you. So how are you going to do this without? Remember, it's integral to the fucking story, man. Okay, it's not member berries. It's only member berries. No. It's only member berries if they're on this planet and suddenly Rex pulls up on a speeder bike. Oh, hey, what are you doing? Oh, what are you doing here? That's member berries. Okay,
did that.
That's the member berries.
Side tangent to Mandalore, and he goes, "Hey, Ahsoka, you're doing great out here, champ." She's like, "Thanks, Dad."
Yeah. Oh, yes.
He runs away.
The Rex was member berries. It's like if Bo-Katan showed up or Maul showed up. But no, that was like,
it was good.
Fine, just Rex, and like that's it. Seeing clones to me is not member berries. Any clones? No.
They're prevalent. The era is called the Clone Wars. They're everywhere. I mean, they're everywhere.
I believe Sheevan says that. She's like, "This is the Clone Wars," and he's like, "Yeah, no kidding."
I can't wait for you to bring up like how at one point she crossed her arms, because I know how much you hate when she crosses her arms.
As a child
that
as well. She did
pisses
as a
you off.
child.
You cannot tell me that it is not a ridiculous amount of arm crossing in this series. All right, every guy
Okay.
does it all the time.
Let me ask you a
Wars.
question. Let's do this. Let's do this because we talked about this before. You kind of did okay, yeah, and then you left it alone. And then how many times does fucking Ewan McGregor have his arms in his fucking sleeves in the prequels? How many times does Qui-Gon Jinn have his arms in his sleeves in the prequels? How many times does Mace Windu have his arms in his sleeves in the prequels?
Okay,
it is a Jedi fucking pose, goddammit. It is not just Ahsoka. They all do it. The only one that didn't really was Anakin.
Look, if you see her arms uncrossed, you can guarantee goddamn to you they're going to be crossed within a millisecond. All right, I'm just saying. It is a wild amount of arm crossing. It's a nitpick, I know.
I mean, would you rather be Dooku and cross them behind herself instead?
Thrawn can do that. That's how Thrawn stands too.
Very polite.
Yeah.
When we see Thrawn, it stands behind his back.
Right. Behind his back.
Gonna lose it.
Very respectful.
Right.
No manners to cross your arms in front of people like that.
But can you at least admit that it's a Jedi pose? They all do it. You just don't see it as much because it's usually in the sleeves. But they all do it.
He hates the prequels, so how would he know this?
Well,
Again,
it doesn't matter because the Jedi were
then this is
stupid.
not a failure with Ahsoka. It's just he hates the prequels. He
He's
hates
a
Star
fake
Wars,
fan.
except the first three movies. That's it. We know. We get it.
I think what the biggest problem is, I just don't understand the new stuff.
No, you
everything
didn't.
that's come out. I just don't understand.
You didn't get all the
Why it's not.
references. Like when Anakin twirled the lightsaber behind his back.
Oh, he did the thing,
Oh, I
guys.
remember.
Even though it was like the most
You're
pointless
bad.
move because it did nothing
really
for the
made me laugh
fight.
Star Wars all day.
That's a
I
member berry
remember,
right there.
Like 4 of them. Oh, I
Thank you.
remember that shit made me laugh.
Because that's what it. Okay. No, so this isn't really a criticism of the episode. I guess it could be, but it's more of a criticism of the Star Wars fandom. That is the stuff that truly annoys me with the fans, where they're like, "Look at this parallel. It's Ahsoka and Anakin standing by each other, just like in this other series where they were standing."
Oh,
by
I
each
know
other.
which
So
post you're talking about.
You're spending too much time on Twitter.
Yeah. I at this point, I agree. I mean, because I see this stuff and I'm like, I hate the fandom. I hate the stupidity. But I'm glad you brought up Twitter because we can do our little Twitter segment on the show. Oh, I'm glad.
Can we likely put BB-8 in there just for Papa Memes and Goldman? We got BB-8 in there.
Sequel rep, yo.
All right. So this week on Twitter, we got 2 for you guys. Oh my God, this looks horrible. Actually, you can
What
read it.
resolution is this?
Holy
Oh, I
shit.
don't think you should-
We can read it.
That's horrible. Oh, you can't. Go ahead.
Did you scan that like off of like a by one fucking image? What are we going on
No,
here?
I'm trying to put it over Palpa memes.
Can I call it quick?
Yeah, Star Wars only printed it out on paper and then took a picture of it.
We didn't discuss an entire half of this episode about what Ahsoka did after she woke up. The whole aspect of Jason being able to hear the fight. There's a lot of other shit we need to discuss here.
Well, can I ask if Hera heard that too? Because it's implied that she heard it as well.
Yeah, it does look like she heard it.
Yeah, it took her a lot of listening to though. But
and how does she hear? She has like the muffs on all the time, and like, do they have ears?
Wait, don't sit here and judge.
How is she so? How does she hear anyone talk to her?
Those Leku are sensitive. They're sensory.
No, I think that's canon. Yeah,
So
I think that's canon. That they
through the tentacles.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure.
I'm not a criticism. I just didn't know. Yeah. I'm not the nerd here, guys.
I've read that somewhere. I don't know for sure.
You know, you're racist against.
Right. I did not not understand that. At least I admit it. Unlike some other people.
Only the species towards the. Is it Torguta? Torgutas?
Togrutas, yeah.
Togrutas, yeah. Okay, well, we want to talk about this other half because I want to talk about that Purgle scene. As I said, it's fucking beautiful. That scene was my favorite scene in the episode. Besides Anakin with the red lightsaber, that was nice.
That part was really cool.
No, that was again. I want to say, like on paper, I would have been like, "This is this is gonna be the stupidest shit I've ever seen. This needs to be an animation." But they pulled it off in a way where, wow, this looked phenomenal, and it felt great. You feel the weight of the story, of the climax of the story approaching. You feel that weight of, oh, we are on our last breath and on doing whatever we can just to get to Thrawn at this point. And the music was phenomenal. I love the sort of humor with Carson, who's trying to hold off the New Republic. I thought that was great. And speaking of, I wanted to bring up earlier we talked about the info dump. Can we talk about the info dump that Hu Yang brought about Kanan? It was literally like straight up a who is Kanan Google search, and then it was like Kanan was a Jedi from. No, but it really was.
I mean, he is a Jedi historian. I mean, that's
I know, but it literally felt like if you typed in who is Kanan in Google, that's what would pop up. It's just
Hu Yang is Google for the Star Wars universe. That's literally what he is.
I'm saying it's bad.
I'll defend Filoni a little bit. I do think that was somewhat necessary.
No, it was. I'm not saying it was bad. I'm saying it made me laugh because they needed to put it in somewhere, and they're like, "Hey, Carson's confused." And he's like,
"Yeah, okay." That was hilarious. That was the funny part. He's like, "Sure."
Well, did you guys like Jason hearing the lightsaber?
I was okay with that. Because it wasn't overdone. They didn't make him like OP. Like he just I hear this. You know what I mean? But he didn't even pinpoint Ahsoka. It was Chopper that pinpointed where she was. So it's showing that he has sensitivity, but it's not like he's not
there yet.
One,
but anyone
he's not fucking Omega. You know, that solves every fucking problem for everyone. Fuck them kids.
Where Lunga, where does Jason rank on your Star Wars kids ranking?
He's not at the lowest rank, which is fuck these kids. He's not at the highest rank, which is I don't know, young Luke in Obi-Wan. I thought that was, or Leia. I love Leia.
Oh God, yeah, that was bad.
I know you hated her. I mean, certain scenes, the running scenes, obviously dumb, but I loved the portrayal. I loved the character. I loved the way she did it. It was great. He's up above. He's up above the middle.
I'm glad to hear
it. He's out of a 10. I would say he's a 6, 7-ish.
What about the kid?
I hate that hair. I hate the way he looks. I hate the way he just...
Dude, they could have
Twi'lek. What the fuck?
So Lunga has purple hair. You hate him?
Better. No, as long as not a child.
So it's because he's a child.
Grown ass man.
There's a
can't be a
biological reason.
Parent the three of you in this stream.
There's a biological reason why his hair is green. Only it's not because he's a kid and ooh, mom, I want to dye my hair. Like
no, the reason's true. I just
and I'm glad it's not over the top like it was in the Red Bull's epilogue. Like if he had a
full
yeah, that was some neon green hair. That was some
like here it's just a little green, and that's enough.
Yeah. But again, the colors in Rebels, they were very bright. Everything about it, animation colors were bright.
I'm getting distracted here. I'm not talking about how he looks. Like, you said fuck Jason. Like, do you actually, do you get annoyed when he's talking or not? Or do you just...
Yeah. Like, when he came off the ship and he was like, Mom, can I Is it cool if I come out now? And she's like, yeah, by all means. And he just like stands on the same fucking spot he was at. I was like, oh, you don't want to run around and explore a little bit or do anything? I don't know. I just nitpick.
No, I mean, a kid who's father died and is being raised by a general who fought a war, who's being taught to be careful.
Dragged into the most unsafe environments possible,
and he has learned from his mother,
marshaled or whatever. A horrible mother. Then I mean, to bring him into such a dangerous situation. 3 people died right in front of that kid. You think that's not going to traumatize him? Talk about Ahsoka.
He's not traumatized.
Oh, I forgot. Yeah, he's got plot armor. It'll be fine.
Jason's a strong kid.
It's a Star Wars thing. Okay, they took look how Anakin was raised. They let him pod race. Right, is dangerous. Like, oh, he'll be okay. Let him pod race.
You expect Hera to leave Jason with those assholes in the New Republic?
They literally say in Phantom Menace, they're like, "Oh yeah, no human can pod race," and he's like, "I can." This little 9-year-old fucking rat. And his mom's like, "Yeah, send them out."
And Qui-Gon's like, "Yeah, but can he?" I think it'll be all right.
I'm all for desperate measures, guys. Come on.
But it's a Star Wars thing with putting children in danger. They do it. I mean, the whole Skeleton Crew show, which I hope doesn't actually happen. It's a bunch of kids, and they're going to be in dangerous situations everywhere they fucking go. I mean, these clones are dragging Omega around everywhere because she's our daughter. We got to bring her. She's well, okay. Stay on the ship, but she never stuck and stays on the ship. All right, you know what? Carry this electro bow with you then, and come fight with us. Even though you've had no formal training, we kind of just taught you some stuff on the ship. It's a Star Wars thing. They do this to children.
Look, we all know Uncle Owen and Aunt Brew are the best parents because they kept Luke safe for so many years until that lady.
Yeah, what happened to them?
Oh, well, they were burnt alive, apparently. But they did it to protect their kid. Okay, exactly. So we know at the end of this episode, clearly at bare minimum, Ahsoka is going to go find Thrawn. Do you guys feel like we're going to see that in the next episode? Like we're going to immediately, because like I said earlier, one of the small complaints I'd have about this episode is it really took a side step from the goal of finding Thrawn. And at the end, we kind of get back to that point of, okay, now we're going to go find him. And Ezra as well. Do you guys think we're going to see this in the next episode? Or like me and Lunga said 2 weeks ago, it's going to take them a minute to get the Thrawn because of how much hyperspace and stuff is involved. Are we going to see Thrawn at the end of the series? Are we going to see him in the next 2 episodes? Someone told me it was at the end of the series. Someone else told me it was in episode 6. So who the fuck knows?
I think we're going to see very little of Ahsoka next episode. I think it's going to be all Sabine, Balin, and Morgan Nesbitt. Most of the episode is going to be that.
That's a good point.
And it's going to be them most likely, like which I think we all kind of predicted that, and a lot of people have been saying, but people still don't understand this. The map is not leading them to Thrawn. It's
that's what I said.
It's leading them to an area that something Morgan knows about, because I think she said, because she says she heard him. So I think she had communications with Thrawn, and when she found out where he's at, she researched her stuff with the Night Sisters, and she realized that they have information on this area, and that's how they're going there. So I think there's gonna be a lot of this. Okay, we're out here now. Where is he? Out here. We narrowed that. We narrowed it down. It's not a needle in a haystack anymore. Let's try to find him. Even though trying to find someone in a galaxy is still technically needle in a haystack, but let's find him out here. So I think we're gonna see a lot of that, and I think we're gonna see a lot of Inchulin.
Agreed. I think,
and probably no Thrawn until the last episode.
I think they're going to end. I think they're going to end the episode 6th episode finding Thrawn. Like that's going to be the tease, like the first look at Thrawn, and then see episode 7 and 8 actually do shit with him. I'm more so curious Ezra's location, like, and Thrawn's location. Really, like, what are they up to? If I had to predict what this episode is going to happen in this next episode, I think they're going to get there. They're going to need to find Thrawn. They're going to run into some like new bad guys that are going to be Thrawn's army or whatever, something like that. And then they'll find Thrawn. And then maybe for the 7th and 8th episode, Sabine and there's some conflict around finding Ezra. I don't think Thrawn and Ezra are just hanging out together. I think they're somewhere else. They may be in some close proximity with each other. I don't think they're best friends by any means. And I do not think he's dead.
But that'd be so much more interesting if they were like actually together. Like they're like, well, we had to learn.
To be fair, he was on the ship. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but it wasn't just the Chimera? Wasn't it the entire 7th Fleet that was taken, or was it just the Chimera?
I assumed it was just the Chimera.
It seems like just Thrawn and Ezra. I mean,
because if you remember,
the Chimera was an entire starship. So it's not just.
I think it's just the ship because in the finale of Rebels, Thrawn's like talking to his fleet before we actually see the Purrgil. He's like, what the hell's going on? And he actually references Captain Pelion, who's in the books. And then we saw just the Chimera.
So it's probably just the Chimera. But again, we're still talking about an Imperial class starship. And the Chimera is one of the biggest in the fleet. So it is a fully staffed starship. That's why,
I don't think it's.
I mean, maybe eventually one day he could have sneaked out, grabbed a TIE fighter, and took out an interceptor because Thrawn has all his interceptors on his
ship. Like on that Star Destroyer.
I think it'd be more interesting if they were. I mean, I think it would be really interesting if because honestly, the map thing, I don't want to make a big side tangent. I'm still a little iffy on, I guess, my understanding of it, because when they first went out and everything, and we think of where they went, it seemed like they were just going into the unknown regions. And now it seems like it's a completely different galaxy. And that goes into the whole all right, what about the Grysk and all that shit and what we already know about the unknown regions?
Not gonna happen.
Completely jumped over that, went somewhere else.
So
I'm
it's
done.
Funny. It's funny. I think it would have been so much better if they didn't show Thrawn in the trailers. But we've seen him. He's still wearing his Imperial outfit. I just find it funny how 10 years later, he still looks all clean. His nice uniform.
I mean, I'm sure he has more than one outfit, more uniform on the in his quarters. Okay, I'm sure he has a whole wardrobe of uniforms.
I think
if the ship is still operational, it has all.
What if we find out we find Thrawn, he's got the long hair and a beard and all that stuff. He's man, it's been so long. What the fuck, guys?
I think from the comic book, the comic book when the Empire found him.
I think Thrawn's done stuff at this new galaxy. I don't think he's been sitting on the Star Destroyer with Ezra for 10 years. I think he's amassed some sort of army or whatever. Do you think Thrawn and Ezra?
Now there is a possibility.
Thrawn work together.
That would be cool.
Seems like
that'd be I agreed.
That was my prediction early on.
I think that's the smartest way to go with this. Is these two teamed up, and that's where me and Lunga, being the book nerds that we are, and wanting the Grysk to be involved, that would make this such a great story to go with. Is just Ezra being look, guys, I know you want to defeat Thrawn, and yes, he is evil in a way, but no, he's right. We have this big problem that we all need to face together, because if you all fight each other, we're not going to be strong enough to defeat them. And that thing is called.
And that's why Thrawn wants to get back, not to restart the Empire, but he wants to get back.
I think you guys are optimistic that we're going to get a more empathetic Thrawn, and I don't think we're going to get that. I think we're going to get villainous Thrawn. And I think he's been amassing something in this new galaxy. I don't think he's with Ezra right now. Sure, they might have had to survive for a little bit. I can't picture Ezra doing that. I can't picture Ezra working with Thrawn for 10 years.
Maybe at together. I mean,
maybe at first they
could have crashed. Darth Maul. He teamed up with the Sith.
Okay, he didn't know who Darth Maul was. He didn't really see the crimes he committed.
But if you know, but again, if they just stick to a modicum of what Thrawn is, okay, he is still diplomatic. He would still try to talk to Ezra. And he would still try, I mean, even if they don't go with the route that me and only, having our fever dream about, about the Chiss and the Grysk and stuff, even if they don't go that route, Thrawn, being the strategist he is, he says, we will be stronger together out here. Neither of us know what we're dealing with out here.
I think
so. That makes sense.
I think for a time that could be it. I don't believe when our characters get there, the two will be in cahoots somehow. I don't think they'll be aligned. Anyway, that's just my prediction.
That's another thing. We've been talking about Thrawn. Do you guys think we're going to see Ezra by episode 8 or in the next episode or anything like that?
I think we'll see Thrawn first. I think we'll see Thrawn at the end of the 6th episode. And I think we'll at least see Ezra in the last episode. But I don't know if we'll see him before that. I think they're going to find Thrawn first, and then they're going to have to go extra steps to find Ezra. That's why I don't think they're together.
I think it's going to be split. I think Morgan, Balin with Sabine are going to find Thrawn. And Ahsoka, when she goes out there, they're going to find Ezra. And then in the last episode is when it all comes together.
That does seem like it would pass the normal writing test of what we could expect in the situation.
Yeah, and it would be kind of a juxtaposition, right? Because even though she wants to find Ezra, my objective is to stop Thrawn. That's Ahsoka. Whereas Sabine's was to find Ezra. And it goes the opposite way.
The big thing we know for certain, just because of what they showed in the trailer of Thrawn, is that he does get on the ship. So Morgan does find Thrawn. Thrawn gets back to that ship, which means he could get back to the galaxy. The big question is, not only when does this happen? Does this happen at the end of episode 8? Because if that does, then the question just is, all right, in season 2, it's only about Thrawn. Yeah, it's a cliffhanger. If this happens in episode 6, it goes, what's going to happen in 7, 8, and 9? Because you're not going to wrap up the story of Thrawn or not 7, 8, 9, just 7 and 8. You're not going to wrap up Thrawn's little arc and him being heir to the Empire in 7, 8 for Ahsoka and then not do anything with it. What do you guys think? Like this question, do you guys think we're getting another Zahn trilogy? I don't think we're going to get a trilogy of anything. But
I mean,
with
throwing too many hints about heir to the Empire. I mean, they're throwing
really
too many hints.
They have. But where does this story go with Thrawn? Is this going to be Ahsoka season 2 and it's basically heir to the Empire? Is this going to be Dave Filoni's Star Wars movie coming out 2 to 3 years from now? There has to be something that we build on here because the goal is finding Thrawn and Ezra. Okay, we find him. Now what?
Yeah, and this is gonna be the movie that everyone's been talking about, right? The whole Mandoverse is gonna be a movie. You're gonna have Mando in there. You're gonna have Bo-Katan, the Mandalorians. You're gonna have this whole thing, and he's going to be, unfortunately, the main antagonist of that movie, and he's going to be the new threat in this era, sandwiched between, the end of the original trilogy and the sequel trilogy. So yeah, I think that's what's going to happen. You're spot on with that. That's what I believe it's heading towards. Yeah.
Oh, Papa means rage quit.
Are you okay?
Just rage quit. You just rage quit.
I think my internet just blocked out. I'm good.
You've been quiet for a minute as well. What
I've been listening.
Tell us how you really feel.
Yeah, please.
Thrawn is not my area of expertise per se, so you guys know way more about. I haven't read the books, unfortunately. It is on my list, but so I was just kind of letting you guys talk. I do want to give my prediction on when Thrawn will show up. My personal prediction on how the rest of the season is going to go, just bluntly, is I think I agree with Goldman. I think for sure we're going to see Thrawn, those shots from the trailer at the end of episode 6. Episode 7, we're going to learn more about what he's building in his sort of army, whatever that may be, the Chiss or whatever. Episode 8 is going to be the start of whatever big fire, and who knows how that's going to go. I think episode 8 is going to be a pretty big battle.
Well, it definitely won't be the Chiss, because the Chiss are in the unknown regions. They're not in this other galaxy.
Here are my predictions. Yeah. I think episode 6, I don't think we'll see much Ahsoka. I think we're going to get there. I think they're going to find Thrawn at the end. And I wonder, since Baylan seems like this honorable guy, if he's going to help Sabine find Ezra. Because maybe he's looking for Ezra too, in a way, because we still don't know what he and Shin want. I think it's more than just Thrawn. So I think they're going to spend some time also finding Ezra after finding Thrawn.
Oh, it's definitely more. Yeah, Thrawn's, like we've all said, is a means to an end.
I think they're going to spend 2 episodes maybe establishing the threat. Maybe something happens when they get there that they can't just immediately leave and go back. Like Thrawn has to amass his ships or whatever so they can go back to the known galaxy. And I think they're going to kind of fail. And then at the end, they're going to get back. And then that's going to be the cliffhanger. They're like, we know what the threat is. Now they're back in the galaxy. And then season 2 is going to be whatever. And then the movie is going to be the end.
So basically, we are doing a trilogy. We're going to have season 1, which is this, season 2, and then season 3 will be the movie.
I don't know if it'll be specifically a trilogy, but if they're loosely adapting Heir to the Empire, I feel like they're going to do most of it on the shows, and then the ending, The Last Command, will be.
And the next Mando season is going to lead into it too, guaranteed.
Yeah. Especially with him being involved in the New Republic.
Yeah.
You guys want to go over these super chats we've gotten?
Yeah, let's do that.
We only got 2. My theory is Sabine is in love with Ezra. I feel like that's kind of been hinted at, has it not?
Yeah. That's been strongly hinted at. That's how it's felt to me. It has.
I don't know, but he did say you're like a sister to me. I mean, so
I know
it's a Star Wars,
and you saw her look kind of disappointed when he said that too.
Okay, so one-sided,
I'd like them to go down that route because I'm just a shipper naturally. Part of me just doesn't think they're going to do it. I think
you ship Shin and Sabine. Are you one of those?
No, I'm absolutely not one of those.
I would have a problem.
You would piss off the certain parts of the fan base.
Yeah, I know, but
I don't want this woke agenda in my Star Wars.
They see 2 people who clearly hate each other, and then they're always like, "Oh, let's have them fall."
No, like literally, what is up with a female character getting brought in Star Wars, gets attacked by this psychopathic mass murderer, and then people on freaking Twitter heads are like, "Oh my gosh, did you see the way she looked at Kylo Ren? She's into him."
It's not the same.
That started on Tumblr. This is a
I
very
don't care
old
where
thing.
it started.
Anyway,
Freaking ridiculous.
We don't need
Sorry.
to
Sorry,
do
I'm
the
having a
shit
meltdown
years
now.
and years and years ago. This
I
started.
don't think they're setting up a Ezra Bean relationship.
Lord Baratheon, I think it's Robert Baratheon, King of the Andals, first his name, whatever. When I say another Zahn trilogy, what I mean is another book trilogy, but it's set after Rebels, but before Ahsoka.
Books for him.
There's no way he's going to make
so-
9. He pretty much said that last little bit was really it.
I think I'll have a better answer after we see the rest of the season. I think if there's any like mystery as to what Thrawn and Ezra have been up to for 10 years, then absolutely not. They're not going to let Zahn tie too much into the future of the shows. I think if there's no mystery whatsoever and they're like, Ezra and Thrawn have been up to this for 10 years, then I think they're going to let Zahn expand on that.
I want to hear his full name said on the show. I want to hear Mithran Rodo. I want to hear the whole name said.
Truly, for me, I really want like some payoff for those books. Like I know we've beat a dead horse here with the Grisk and everything, but it's canon. I mean, that's Palpatine and Vader knew about it. Thrawn knows that this is it would be the not only just the biggest disservice, like it's the biggest fuck you to just all Star Wars canon for Dave Filoni to let like years of build up just go to waste. And he's like, oh, the Grisk, yeah, I actually didn't even think about those guys. That was dealt with by somebody else. Like I don't want that. I want some fucking payoff.
It was Lucasfilm, bitch. It wasn't somebody else. God damn it.
I really think they're going to resolve that in the books.
No, there's no way. I mean, well, maybe, but like, it would have to be with like Thrawn and the Chiss and everything.
So what do we have? Are we gonna have 3 categories of books now? We're gonna have EU Legends, Disney canon, and Disney almost canon. Is that what it is? We're just gonna have like 3.
Absolutely. No, it's there's the EU, then there's Disney canon, and then there's a subcategory called was once canon but is now subcanon, where
Disney canon and with Dave Filoni's handwriting scratched out saying "not according to me."
Yeah, it's not anymore canon. Like you were once here, not anymore.
Dave Filoni will do an interview where he's like, so there's always been 2 kinds of canon. There was George Lucas canon, the movies, and then we have the expanded universe. Now there's 3 because now we have my.
Well,
canon.
I talked to George and he really liked Zahn's books, but he's to him it's really not canon. And although I know they slapped a label on it that says it's canon, it's still not really canon. So we're not going to use it.
I really think most of what happened in the Heir to the Empire trilogy of books, I think they're going to focus on the non-canon books. Wow. Non-canon books way more than the canon books. Like, I don't think they're going to tie into the Grisk. I think we're going to see the, what are those worms called? The Salamir or something? The Force removing worms.
Oh, yeah.
I think we'll see those. Maybe not.
I mean, those were in Rebels. You saw them on the thing behind them.
Those things on that mural in his office could be anything, but sure. I think we'll actually see
No, that's what they were. That they were Ysamiri on that thing behind that carving behind him. Yeah, that's what they were. That was a nod at that thing. That's what it was.
They could be anything. They could be anything.
All right. Well, the force can be anything, obviously, too, and and anyone could be a Skywalker. So I guess, sure, yeah, we'll
Great point.
And anyone can be a Jedi or not a Jedi. It's whatever you want to be.
It's about your dedication.
Yeah. You guys want to wrap up the show? You guys want to react to these 2 tweets before we leave?
Sure.
Play the animation again.
Oh, fuck.
No.
Right,
he did.
The animation's great, man.
All right, so this week on Star Wars Twitter, we have horrible resolution images that we'll fix next week. This says, are people against the term Dark Jedi? Please explain to me why, genuinely asking. This has been a big topic with Balin and Shin lately, being Dark Jedi or Gray Jedi and everything. To me, it's clear they're Dark Jedi. Am I the only one who feels that way?
It's all semantics.
It is because people are like trying to dig, the Uber nerds are trying to dig. Well, technically, Dark Jedi
contradictory
because of this, not blah, 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 and this, blah, blah, blah. Okay, listen. Obviously, we're talking about Disney Lucasfilm here, right? Right? They're rewriting their whole canon, even the canon that they made. So they're rewriting it all. So they can use whatever fucking term they want. And if they're not going to do something that's like a gray Jedi, which is very ethereal and really doesn't fit these anyway, the term Dark Jedi works for someone who's not a Sith but still uses the dark side of the Force. It makes sense. And also, you could say a dark Jedi because they don't follow all the tenets of the Jedi, however, still have, like Balin, still have a code of morals and still have some honor about them, even though they use these, you know, powers and forces and some motivations that are on the dark side. So I think the term fits. You know, again, stop thinking about the EU term Dark Jedi. It's meaning something different.
That's a good point too, is thinking about it differently from the EU. Because I think with at least modern Star Wars, like the Sith came from probably like a dark Jedi. There was a dark faction of the Jedi. Clearly, Balin and Shin could be similar to that, where it like inspires the Sith and everything like that. So it's been an interesting debate. This other tweet, I think Pat News, you sent this one. People who were involved in the Star Wars community when prequels were released, was the hate as bad as it is with the sequels? Because someone else was talking about the disdain for the prequels was not really there.
I guess we can only ask the old guy here.
This has been a huge argument all over Twitter. And we kind of hit on it last time, Star Wars Only. People confuse anger and response. Okay. Was the anger as great? I would say, yeah, people were pissed.
Mm-hmm.
People were pissed. Okay. They were annoyed. Fuck us, Lucas, blah, blah, blah. Anyone looks back and sees the documentary, you know how angry
people were more angry with the prequels.
Yes,
not more.
I think so.
I said it was, I would say it's about the same.
Okay.
I wouldn't say more.
Okay.
I would say it's about the same because there were still plenty of people. There were still plenty of people who were enjoying it. You know what I mean? It was just like there were people who enjoyed the sequels, even though, you know, a lot of the people hated it. So there are people that were still enjoying it, especially the kids. You know, kids that grew up with it loved it. Let's be honest, okay? Yeah. The parents were pissed off, but the kids that grew up with it loved it. And that's what this whole prequel love, this whole, we want Anakin and everything, and if he's not, it's dumb. That's where it came from, okay? Let's be honest. So the anger was the same. It was just, I would say, about equal. However, the response was different, okay? It didn't hurt as far as people wanting to see more Star Wars, okay? Mm-hmm. The hype was still there. They're like, oh, yeah, George pissed me off. Oh, but if he makes 7, 8, 9, I'm going to go see it. You know, I mean, they were still going to go see it. They were still going to go see it. It wasn't now where it's like, fuck Star Wars, and, you know, half of the fan base doesn't want to even watch it. And the only ones that do are the ones that are grifting off of fucking money on it on YouTube, but that's the only reason why they watch it. But, you know, the response was different, okay? And so it wasn't this, fuck George Lucas, I'm never watching anything he makes again. I'm never watching Star Wars again. I'm burning all my merchandise. I'm not buying anything ever again. It wasn't like that. The response, what happened after the sequels, was way different than the response after the prequels, even though the anger was about the same.
I feel like as someone who grew up during the prequel time and like remembering my father and all like the older people talking about it and just how pop culture looked at the prequels, the sequels, the reaction was more of a like a hate thing of like, oh, I hate what you did with these characters. The prequels was more of like a, I'm overwhelmingly disappointed. You know, like when your dad says, I'm not mad at you, I'm just disappointed. And that hurts even more than him being mad. That's how I felt like what the prequels reaction was. I mean, from 2000, from the year 2000 to like maybe 2015, when you talked about the prequels to anybody in culture, anything, it was like a known thing that they sucked. It's only been in the past like 8 years that there's been this new, well, actually, they're really not that bad kind of argument. But for most of their like livelihoods, it's been, no, these are actually really bad movies. Natalie Portman almost didn't have a career because of these movies. Hayden Christensen has openly said, even recently, I'm glad they're welcoming me now. So it's wild to me that people are like, well, actually, no, they were never hated on. Hayden himself is saying that I got hate back then because of these movies. The reaction was vastly different, but I think the reason it's different is because there is nothing as more anticipated as the Star Wars prequels. The sequels will never reach the anticipation hypes that they had in 1999 for The Phantom Menace. I mean, you're talking about going from peak Star Wars to Star Wars is back. And like Lunga was saying, it was George Lucas. So even though George disappointed everybody, they still wanted to go see more Star Wars. Even in that documentary, the people versus George Lucas are like, hey, look, George, you fucked up, but we love you. And no matter what, I'm always going to be a fan of yours. That's not the case these days because it's not the guy. It's not George making it. So if someone like Ryan or JJ makes a Star Wars movie, people can go, you guys suck. You don't know what you're doing anymore. Fuck you, because it's not George Lucas. Because now they know George will never be able to do anything with it again. So they can easily just write it off as, oh, George would have done it better.
Yeah, I think we can just, I mean, you can look at the box office drop-offs comparative from the prequels to the sequels. I know people don't like to do that, but you have to look at that. You have to look at that and understand the response to that. I agree 100%, Lunga. I mean, I say this as, as a huge prequel fan. Yes, they were very much hated. There's no doubt about that. We also have to, I think, open up the idea of the internet. The internet is very, very different from now when the sequels came out compared to when the prequels came out. I think there's a huge, I'm not saying that means the, I guess, hate is unbalanced based because of that. I'm saying that discussion allowed people to really insert their hate directly at Disney workers, this, and that, and amongst the fandom. And that really, really changed. And in my opinion, I think that is one of the reasons, amongst other things, that the sequel hate is still so significantly strong. I do think it also is people are still disappointed with the content Disney and Lucasfilm have been putting out regarding, not even really movies, but of course the shows. I think let's just make up a hypothetical situation that 90% of the shows that have come out on Disney Plus have been loved by a large portion of the fandom. Like, they were just great and people loved them. I don't think the sequel hate would be as prevalent, whereas people have been pretty disappointed with Disney Plus. And so it's just kind of like, to them, it's just kind of like stabbing the knife a little bit more through the chest. They just keep digging a little bit farther with that. But I think that's a great way of putting it, Lunga, is anger versus response.
Yeah. And my kids were, my kids are 30, 25, and 24. Okay. So the 25, 24-year-olds, they're right around, your guys' age, and they grew up with the prequels, and my daughter, first of all, loves the Ewan McGregor Obi-Wan Kenobi. That's like her guy. That is, she loves it. We joke around all the time about it. She just loves watching him. She's like, he's awesome. I love it. I love it. I love it. And she recognizes the story sucks, but she's like, I don't care. This is beautiful. And she watches it. She buys me Jar Jar Binks still to this day. My birthday. Just my birthday just passed. She bought me a Jar Jar Binks fucking keychain and went and gave it to me. Okay, so so there is a pop culture thing just with people who grew up in that era. They have, even if they weren't like super fans of it, have fond memories of it. You know what I mean? So it has it. And this goes into the whole argument where the people are having this other argument too, which is kind of off of this one. It's like, oh, in the future, people are gonna feel the same way about the sequels as they do about this. And there's a possibility. Just for we saw what happened to prequels, it could happen, and people are like, it'll never happen. Well, I'm sure people during the prequels,
we really don't know. I think it's dependent on future stories post Rise of Skywalker. Whatever hope or lack of hope you guys have for this new Jedi Order film, if it even freaking happens, I think a lot of it is hinging on that. How is the future of these characters going to go? If they make Finn a good character, they make Rey a more likable character to a more large portion of the fandom, blah, 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 and people actually like the stories, I can see that for sure kind of changing the tide of, they look back at the sequels with nostalgia. I mean, I already know people who hate the sequels, but they're like, I'm kind of nostalgic for Force Awakens. That was kind of a special time.
But it won't be Rey on that. It'll be Kylo Ren and Finn.
Yeah, well, guess what? Kylo's not coming back. Those are the two characters. So that sucks.
Those are the two characters people are going to love.
Anyway, I want to give my thoughts on this whole topic because I think history is repeating itself almost identically, and I'm surprised how many people don't notice. So, almost identically. The prequels were really hated, and I really think Biggs was not involved. That was a big ploy, or a big part of the marketing was that this movie is not the prequels. If you go back to 2015 and watch a bunch of shit, so many people were like, even from the first trailer, you can tell that this is not directed by George Lucas. I'm so excited. And then people ended up not liking the sequels. And if there was some sort of alternate universe where George Lucas bought back Star Wars, then people would be like, people hated George Lucas back then, and the fact that there was a change is what made people so excited. And now people hate Disney, and I guess we'll see if there's ever some sort of change. Whether Kathleen Kennedy leaves or whatnot, I don't think that's likely to happen. Or I think Star Wars will remain with Disney for a long time, not Kathleen Kennedy.
Because even if they change Kathleen Kennedy, it's not going to be like you were saying with George.
Goldman thinks they're going to do like Futurama. They're going to cut her head off and put it in a globe and just keep her there.
Yeah. So the fact that George isn't going to get Star Wars back, we'll see how that impacts what we view Star Wars as now. And I wonder, I do not know how favorably the sequels will be viewed in 10 years. I hope that people love them because I'm a shill, but it's up in the air. I think it depends a lot on the content that comes out as Palpatine or other shit. If they do an animated show between Rise of Skywalker and the Rey movie, then maybe. I think it depends a lot on the content, like the New Republic being inept and this new Empire being the First Order, whatnot. I think once the Mandoverse is done, then they'll start doing post Rise of Skywalker stuff. But that's just
it's already the foundation of the sequels is already starting to make a little bit more sense. That's why I'm still triggered by season 3 of Mando with clone Moff Gideon. That was the dumbest shit I've ever seen. My clones. Oh, there's a deactivation button that blows them up. Like what? I'm not gonna get into that, but what the hell?
Was so cringe, and they wasted. They so wasted Giancarlo Esposito.
Motherfuckers, don't go on a tangent now.
I'm sorry.
That man did such a tremendous job in the beginning, and then they just here. This is your character now, and I can imagine him reading and going, "Huh."
Those clones that were like, "Oh, they're just connected to Palpatine and stuff." So oh no, it's just Moff Gideon being stupid. Like, anyways,
isn't it so peculiar though that the Ahsoka series, we can all agree it has, whether you like it or not, it's a focused story. Like there's a clear through line, and that each episode has a clear purpose. It's just strange to me how Ahsoka feels this way. The first 2 seasons of The Mandalorian felt this way, but then like Boba Fett and Mando 3 didn't. I just find that so peculiar because it's the same people. Yeah. So I just wonder how they can be
if they got overwhelmed with work. I mean, Dave Filoni literally started production on Ahsoka almost immediately after they wrapped for Mando season 3, and even before Mando season 3 started filming, Ahsoka was in pre-production. So you got to think John has his hand in Ahsoka. He's got it in
he's an executive producer.
Skeleton Crew. Yeah, he's an executive producer on all of them, but he's also kind of like I imagine a semi-ghost writer in a way of being at least telling Dave, hey, here's where all the stories are going to kind of line up together. So I don't know what happened behind the scenes to make everything change so much, but I mean, you're right. They changed a lot in terms of the story of going from season 3 or from Book of Boba Fett to season 3 of The Mandalorian. They're wildly different than what we saw.
And it's not just good or bad. It's just like a lack of a focused story. Like Obi-Wan had a focused story that a lot of people hated. It's just like Boba Fett and Mando 3
had A to B to C at least. I mean, whereas
like
Mando
3 and Boba are just like so unfocused. Is the term.
Boba Fett? I think at the moment, I'm gonna be making a video on this. Is last on my ranking of the Disney live action shows. But I mean, we're getting off topic. Don't we have more?
Yeah, we got to wrap the show up.
Sorry. Yeah.
That's
all we got. Yep. Unmute yourself. Your final point, Lunga.
Classic.
Audio's
Still
off.
Muted.
He's unmuted, but I still can't hear him. I love you so much, Lunga.
Well, it's showing that it's showing that his voice is coming through. I didn't do it. Did someone mute him?
No, he left again. All right, he's back. This is live troubleshooting.
All right, do you guys hear me now?
Yeah, okay,
yes,
good.
Okay, it was, because Star Wars only flashed and we all like dropped out for a second, and I think maybe when that didn't get my anyway. No, it wasn't me. It wasn't me. Don't blame me because it wasn't me.
It was
the
whole time.
Boomer Lunga.
It was Star Wars only's shitty internet is what it was anyway.
Yeah, I mean.
Yeah. What I was gonna say is those of you guys watching on Star Wars Only's channel, obviously thank you for watching us regardless of where you're at. But please go subscribe over on the Chatooine show because we want to try to get these live streams all over there to help that channel grow, so Star Wars Only can concentrate on his content on his channel, and that way we can have this show over here, so we can have that kind of separation of stuff that makes it easier for him to do his channel. Instead of splitting it up into 2 streams. So if you guys please go over there, subscribe. There's shorts over there of a lot of our shows too that we're doing. So please go subscribe to that channel and help it out, because that's where we would like our live stream and the podcast to be permanently one day.
At some point, we will permanently switch over to there.
Yeah, the future of Chatooine will be on Chatooine. It's not going to always be.
I
on
hope at
the
least.
channel and everything. Yeah, I mean, who knows how the Civil War is going right now? I mean, things are getting pretty intense right now.
The meltdowns
I
are
think-
coming through.
Boomer Lunga's getting old. We might have to take it easy.
Well, first of all, the
Yeah.
first problem is here. I don't know how. Just because I came back does not mean Connor gets to be gets to be on top. That does not work that way.
Okay, put me in
Okay,
last again. All right, fine. Don't even put me in second.
No. Put it
Whatever.
correctly.
Put Lunga and I
But
together.
we'll
so
do
the
this
shorts look good.
here. You can.
There we go.
Give
Let me
us-
get my,
give us your
let me get
takes,
my
Pal, means-
Graflex real quick and show you guys it. Okay.
Let's talk about that
Graph
shit again.
flex.
No, keep Lunga and I on the right side because this is the more engaging side of the stream. You guys stay on the other side.
Oh yeah.
You know what's
It's
funny?
We have
People
the
in
worst
chat are like,
takes.
"Oh my god, Goldman and Lunga are agreeing." It's like, if you guys listen, other than the Last Jedi, if you guys listen, we agree most often than not. Actually, more than anything,
It's just our passion disagreement of.
it's just the
certain
Last
villains.
Jedi is where we go. Whew, just go
well,
opposite
me-
directions.
Me and Only have been
Most part,
agreeing way
it's-
more usual too.
Well, you guys
Yeah,
have been
yeah,
so
yeah.
pessimistic these past few months.
No,
you
we've
know,
just been
doom and
honest.
gloom
Year.
memes in the chat.
Pal Memes has gone on a doom and gloom arc, but I will say, as the show started,
Arc.
especially when we brought in Pal Memes, it was me and Lunga on the no, some of this stuff sucks side, and then you two were like, oh no, everything's great, and now it's switched a little bit, but it's good. I think we're the only show who can kind of do that. And I hate to say this, but I don't like watching some of the other Star Wars shows or podcasts sometimes because it's all the same fucking opinions. And there's like no, like you guys could all look at me and tell
Oh
me,
my
shut
god,
the
it
fuck up, you're
sucks,
wrong.
right? Yeah, right.
Yeah.
It just sucks.
It's either
It's horrible.
completely this
And then
side
you
or
get the one guy
completely
go,
this side.
well, I like
Yeah.
this one part, but other than that, it sucked. That's it.
And I love you guys so much for not making me talk about like small things like, well, actually, it is a Graflex lightsaber, right? And that he's using and all that.
We did
was
talk about that a
fucking
little
silly.
bit though.
Well,
Yeah.
actually,
Yeah.
Just gonna keep quiet from this moment.
Yeah, he stayed.
we
in the
all know
fucking
that the
corner.
Revan lightsaber is the far superior lightsaber, especially considering I 3D printed it and painted it myself. I didn't just buy it from some company
he
and then
uses
refer
Reese.
to Anakin Skywalker's lightsaber as the brand name from where I bought it from.
That's fucking wild.
Oh,
I don't have any of my classic
Andy
lightsabers
Reel.
here. I can't make it.
Airborne sword.
Sort of
Gandalf
the
the
thing.
White.
I don't really know. I don't know my Lord of the Rings lore.
Fuck this.
I just
Fuck
like
this
it.
motherfucker.
Well, it doesn't matter what you guys have. I got
Want me to
claws,
put on my
so-
whole goddamn Revan mask? I'll put on my whole fucking Revan mask if that's what you want me to fucking
You
do.
guys got clawed on you, so
Huh?
Oh, perfect
I got my boy
time.
clawed here.
All right. Well,
That was only
thank you
special.
all for watching. This was a great episode. We will see you guys next Wednesday night at the exact same time, 9:30 Eastern Standard Time, 8:30 Central. I don't know how they used to say it on Disney Channel when I was a kid, but if I could say it like
9:30
that,
E3 Central.
thank you. That was beautiful. That was perfect. We'll see you all next time. Thank you guys for watching Chatooine. Make sure you check out the YouTube channel, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. We're everywhere now. We're going to blow up. We're coming to a theater near you.